Hi, everyone. It's been a while. Um, Welcome to the L to L chat. It's been so long since we've had a chat, but this was impromptu. I really want to have a conversation with a colleague of mine and a good friend about something, a really important question that we should ask ourselves when trying to navigate our careers. So I'm going to bring him on. I'm going to bring Ryan on. Hey, Ryan.
Hey Brittany, how are you?
Good. So good to see you.
Good seeing you too.
So, Ryan, could you share with everyone who you are? Just a brief rundown
Yes,
of
perfect.
what you do.
So my name is Ryan C. Hamilton. I current resident in New York. I've been here for 11 years. I have an interesting situation where I work both creative and in the higher education space. So currently an associate director at the Futures in Finance Initiative with the City University of New York, but I also do photography. And shameless plug, but Brittany's one of my favorite people. So I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you today.
You're one of my faves. And this is how this conversation started. And I thought this was important to bring it on to a different platform. But I don't know about you all that are watching this or will watch this chat, but I try to be intentional with keeping up with my friends. And so the end of the year is such a good time to just check in with your friends. And Ryan and I always, maybe it's because your birthday is in December too, but we always make sure we have really impactful conversations to just set our intentions and just, catch up. And so this December, we were chatting and we were talking about our goals and what's next for us. And he asked a question. He said, "Are you a builder or a sustainer?" And I literally paused and I said, "Whoa, wait a minute." Woo. I said, "Ask that again." I said, "That's really powerful." I was like, "I never thought about that." And while he was explaining, how he came across this question and doing the work around this question, I had to sit there and think about it and plan to do the work myself. So Ryan, share with us how this question came about.
Yeah. So this had to be, I think, 2009. I was a photographer for the university's Howard University's newspaper, The Hilltop, but also worked with the university. And I was photographing Michelle Rhee, who was then either the outgoing chancellor or the chancellor of the schools in the District of Columbia. And in her conversations, actually, she had left. In her conversations, she talked about she's always saw herself more as a builder than a sustainer. And for me, all these years later, it stuck with me as, you know, I find myself as a person who builds systems, like, and even in a lot of work that I do in comparison to sustaining something. And there may be things outside of just being a builder or sustainer, but in those two positions, finding where do you work best. So if you are someone who's a builder, it may be difficult to go to something that's already very well established and you just have to do the thing day to day. There may not be much innovation or creativity. But then there's some people who sustain and flourish in that area. But for myself, I've often found with my own business, my own creativity, and the work that I've done, that I am a builder. I love building programs out. I love building systems. I love the strategy behind the work that I do.
Wow. And it's so true. There's so many different types of environments that we can work in. You can go to like a place like PepsiCo, which is one of those legacy, very established brands. And so the way things are operated are a little, they already have those systems in place. But then you have like a lot of startups, you know, all of these really great, amazing businesses that are coming to the forefront, and they're looking to build their teams. These are really great companies where you can really flex, you know, that quality that you have as a builder.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things that it's so hard, and I think it's also shifting generationally, is that I already go into jobs knowing like I am not retiring here. And that can be sometimes like the downfall of like a builder, which I find exciting. It's like I don't work for places super long. It's like, 2 to 3 years, maybe four, create this foundation, and then being able to pass it along for someone to sustain it. But I've also found that important because you have to make space for other people. Sometimes you can stay in a position so long that it's like you're not even growing anymore. But what you're also preventing is making space for others to come up and either maintain it or bring new innovation. So I've always found that really important to say, okay, I've been here long enough. Let me make space for someone else as well and go work on another project. So that's always my thought, in addition to, okay, what do I need to feed myself? But it's also bringing somebody else up, or someone else now has the opportunity to be in this role and to frame it in the way that they love to, or even sustain it, if you will.
Yeah, that's really important. I'm glad that you saw that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they say that's just the millennial thing and the next generation, that we don't stay long.
Mm-hmm.
Most people talk about the reason that we don't stay long in companies is because it's quicker to advance and to get paid. But this perspective, Ryan, is really neat because it also talks about your growth and your ability to build or sustain. You know, in every role you hit like that level where it's like, I need something more, I need something new. And if you're coming to your management, your directors, and you're saying, I see gaps, I would like to take this on, but you're not giving the opportunity to do that, you know, you get restless. It's like, I need something else to fulfill this. Sometimes it's not always about money, like it helps, okay?
Yes.
But,
Okay.
but sometimes it's just like, time is so precious and valuable. And I think when you get restless, you wonder, how am I spending my time? Like it doesn't feel important. It doesn't feel like it's being utilized correctly. And you start to take it personal. You start to feel some type of way because your time is so valuable.
Yeah. And I love that point. And I think something else I've even challenged myself is that I've been in positions where, or companies where I've only had that one position and I've left. And then I've been in positions where I've been promoted. And for me personally, I found that it's always just been important for me to leave, because even in promotion where you see gaps, depending, is that you already know what you're going to get. And that goes back into that builder mindset where I'm like, okay, I'm getting more money and more responsibility, but the framing of this already exists as it is. But I think it's also really important to have that discernment when we're thinking about work, of what it is that you desire from it. And then I think one of the things too, securing employment is hard, you know. But I think the other piece too with it, I think as roles are becoming a little more remote, there is an advantage for us to be able to choose, the type of work we'd like to go into, and also being upfront. Everyone doesn't talk about, oh, builder versus sustainer, but you can kind of see with your coworkers and yourself where people are. And as we talk about how do you work with different personality traits, I think that one is also important to know. There's some people who want to have the projects,
Mhm.
and do the things. There's some people who would like to be a part of the projects. And then there's some people just to say, tell me exactly what I need to do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make you a good or bad person, but I think these are also things to learn, to say it's like some people are okay with where they are. And I think another piece to that, even when I think about my own creative pursuits, people might be a sustainer in one area and building something else, or a builder mindset in something else. So it doesn't just say like, oh, I'm right here. Like, you yourself, you're building L to L. It's something you're continuously building, plus sustaining. So it's not something stagnant all the time, but it's that, but maybe also in your work, you know, in the 9 to 5, it's like I'm just simply sustaining so I
Yeah.
can build something else.
Yeah, and you made a great point about that because I think about my own personal journey,
Mhm.
um, going back to the 9 to 5 in the pandemic, and when making that decision, I had to decide, you know, how I was going to utilize my time, because I had my personal reasons for going back, but when you have something that you're building on the side, it's like this role, my 9 to 5 needs to be something that I can sustain, right?
Yeah.
And I find myself going back and forth with all those three qualities that you said. Like sometimes it's like I'll lead the project because I'm really interested in the project and I know that it's just a skill set that I've been wanting to learn or need or I could thrive in. Like I feel confident in it, right?
Yeah.
Then there's the times where it's like, just give me what you need. Like
Correct.
what is it that you want? Just send me everything. Like I can't.
Right. Correct. Correct.
And then sometimes it's like I want to participate. I'm actually just want to be supportive to, maybe a teammate that I feel like is really good at leading this,
Yep.
or needs to lead it. And I just want to be supportive. So just tell me what you need,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think it's that thing about taking up space, but also knowing when to give space. Like, I think that is something that has just been essentially important for me that I've recognized in this ecosystem is, am I taking too much space up where I'm shining, surely, but I know someone else can also shine in this area and
Mhm.
what that'll do for them. Because there may be a thing if I'm taking on so many projects, I've already maxed out my peak. This company, my job, they already know what I can do and they might keep relying, but is it okay to make space help refer, someone else so that they can also see that they can shine and that they can do this work, and I feel like they say this where it's like one of the downsides of good work is that you just get more work. But I think, being able to build this trust with your manager, with the team, almost also gives you this influence and power to be able to suggest other people or make that space to say, well, I've worked really closely with this person who may have only taken being a part of the project because they didn't see themselves being able to build, but they have a lot of ideas. And I think, at least what I found, especially working remotely, things have become a lot more collaborative in the
Oh
spaces that
yeah.
I've worked. And in that, I've been able to learn kind of like the nuances of like, what do people really desire, because it's very set in our meetings. So I think that's something that's really important in all of this too, is whether you're a builder or sustainer, also looking out for other people to make sure that people are able to take up space, and that you do the same, but not taking up too much where it clouds other people being able to come up as well.
And Ryan, I think when you start to have that discernment, you're on the fast track to management leadership.
Correct.
Um, that's literally the start. When you can start seeing that in your teammates and start doing that, that's when you really start working your way up to management and finding ways that you can lead a team, mentor a team.
Yeah. I felt that at my previous organization, every single, and I managed 4 full-time staff, all of them could do my job. Like
Mm,
I felt that. And I was like, but that's really important to me, where even in my absence, everything is in good hands because they all can do this.
mhm.
It might be in their own style or in a different way, but the framing of it, the foundation, they can do it. And I think that, even going back to you said, fast track to management, but also being a good manager
Yeah.
for the people that you are over, even a project that you're over, is leaving it in such a way that anybody could pick it up and do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's get back to this question. Can you go back to the time, like most recently, where you had to revisit this question of whether you were a sustainer or builder?
Yeah.
Um, what did you discover about yourself and like leading into that question? And how did that impact your decision in your career?
Yeah. Um, so it, very recently, so this job with the City University of New York, I just started January 31st. And,
Right.
interviewing for this position amongst others, I really got to consider um, what is it that I'm looking for. And with this particular initiative, Futures in Finance, it only exists like there's a framework, if you will, but it exists in thought. And I said, how awesome would it be to return back to CUNY because I'd worked there before, but be in a leadership position to build something out that's going to have impact on others, but knowing through time it is through myself and my team's strategy that made all of this exist. So when I think about those things where um, I'm thinking about it right now. It's like, okay, in the next 3 years, how do I see this built out? What does this look like? And, you know, um, yeah, it's just like more so that. So there's everything right now is in its ideation phase. And I love that. And I find myself thriving in this type of work. So when it came to making this decision, it was how much autonomy will I have? How much in the decision making will I have in the work and being able to lay out that frame? And it excites me, because it's like it makes me allow myself to take up space in a way, but also just to try new ideas, which I
Mhm.
think is really important because I've worked in spaces in similar work to say, what can I take from all of these other spaces that I've learned, built, and sustained and build out in the system to work more closely. And I think it ultimately even aligns with my own personal mission. It's just giving access to people, or, I keep saying this take up space, but I work with CUNY students. And it's ever since I've started, it's been how can I help you all understand how to play the game that is, or
Mhm.
even just play it, understand it,
Yeah.
to give you the tools that are necessary to enter into it and navigate it. I think that's really important. Yeah.
I love it. I'm just so glad you introduced me to this question, and you all that are tuning in. I actually have sat down with this question. And even though I come across as a builder because I'm building, Lemons to Lemonade, I actually feel like I'm a sustainer. I like things to have framework. I like for there to be structure. Um, I like that. I think, and I also think I lean that way because in my 20s, and you all know the story of the Lemons to Lemonade, the 100 interviews, just my early career, just those jobs, they weren't startups, but those previous jobs they acted like startups. It was like every 6 weeks or 6 months, the business model changed. And the minute you felt like, okay, I figured this out, it's like thrown away and you're starting all over. And that was a lot. It was stressful. And personally for me, it was just a lot of uncertainty. And to experience that my entire 20s, that was difficult for me. And it affected my health and all of those things. And so, personally, moving forward and where I want to go in my life, I can't do that building, unless it's building for me and for what I'm doing.
I,
Uh, and
I
even for
love that.
Lemons to Lemonade, Ryan,
Yeah.
I was so afraid to build. I think you even was like, "Brittany, you keep talking about this, like, when are you going to start?" Because I used to at brunch and all of those things, like,
Mhm.
"I wanna do this," and I was just so scared to just build it
Yeah.
until I kinda was pushed into the water
Yeah.
and I just had to go,
Yeah.
and so I know that about me now. I sat with that and I said, "Okay, I like to sustain." Like, if someone could have created the framework work for Lemons to Lemonade and just say, "Here, girl," I would have loved that.
Yeah. It gives you that insight though to understand, even if you have an onboarding team that doesn't work with you forever, the elements of like when people need to come in and come out of projects of like, it's
Mhm.
like it's a reason, season, lesson, these things. But sometimes we say, I'm a sustainer, but I have this really great idea. Whom can I connect with, even if it's community of friends, to help me lift this off the ground and help build this
Mhm.
framework? So that, because you're right, it is that, and I think even online, and I don't know if you've felt this way, but social media and stuff makes you feel like you have to be a builder.
Yeah.
Everything's like build and this hustle and these things. And the reality is, just because you're a stainer doesn't mean you're stagnant.
Mm.
Like I feel like you don't have to be stagnant to sustain something. You just might like order, you may like structure, you may like, and it sounds like the wrong word, like the confines of
Yeah.
things, but I love what you just said about that startup nature and the business model changes because it does affect your work. And I think most importantly, the word you used was health,
Yes.
and everything with this building mindset, you have to be in tune with your health.
Yes.
And I think this pandemic has taught at least myself that, and I'm sure can say that for you. It's like, how is this making me feel?
Mhm.
Mm.
And that was when I had to shift to being a sustainer for a while, and it's not released yet, but I did write an article, essay with Calm, the app,
So
and
awesome.
I talk about the stage, this period that I was in where I had to, kind of step back from L to L because I couldn't be a builder
Mhm.
anymore. I needed to sustain because the world around me was crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder too. I love that you said that because imagine you're building in a way to sustain, and then the pandemic happens and your business model has to change.
Oh yeah.
That it's affected people who were sustainers, like everything was in person, or I have this event series or things working on, and everything's on Zoom or in this virtual landscape. What do I do? Because
Yep.
everything that I've built has it's already there and I'm just ready to sustain it. So yeah, that is really interesting. And I feel like I'm sure you're not alone, but that had to like affect you a lot of just even figuring out what now.
Yeah, and I think that's and we don't talk about that enough. So many people had to literally throw their models, their business models, their frameworks out the door. And
Mhm.
let's not forget about people who are preparing to launch or had just recently launched
Mhm.
prior. It was like, what? I wasn't prepared for that. Everyone had to literally pivot their entire lives.
Yeah.
Um, and it didn't even have to be business, just everyone was making a pivot. And that can be a lot if you're not, if it's just not in your personality to really deal with that type of change.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Even in the working environment,
Mhm.
even as a sustainer, it's okay, what is this company doing? Like it's an adjustment.
Mhm.
And then it's like it was so many things happening at once where it's like my job is changing. Oh, but the world is also changing. And then I am changing, and it felt like it can be hard to stay afloat with so many of those things at once of like, so what is sustaining? And I think the things of like that have been difficult is companies have just tried to sustain work, but it's like we kind of need that space to recalibrate and get back on track. For so many of us, and I'd say myself included, like nothing stopped. And
No, it didn't.
you know, we're still human. And it just goes back to that health thing to say, what would have I desired? Like a moment, I'll go on the record, more stimmies, just stuff to really sustain us where we feel like we're not out here alone to figure it out
Mhm.
during the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking this time with us, Ryan. This question, are you a builder or a sustainer? You all, I really encourage you to really think about this. If you haven't done it already, start now, but also revisit the question when, it's review time, right? And you're up for that promotion or that raise, and you're having to use your personal brand to pitch yourself for these opportunities. Think about that question because that will help so much. Also, let's say you are a builder or even a sustainer who's like, I'm kind of getting bored, and I need something else, or I see gaps and I'm being vocal about the gaps that I see in our business that I would like to own and spearhead, and you're not given the resources or um, the acknowledgement to even like take that on. That's when you're gonna have to stop and think about this question, and is it time to move on? You know, if you're not able to do those things to be the builder that you want to be, is your business the unstable? Is it changing the business model, the things that you're doing with your team too frequently for you to catch up? Do you feel like you're drowning? Do you feel like you can't sustain that? Are you being asked more than what you signed up for or what the role entailed? You're going to have to revisit that question and make sure it aligns what you're doing now. Like, I didn't sign up for this. I need to realign and find something that goes with what my goals are for the future.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brittany, for having me. This has been a pleasure. This is my personal mission for myself this year is to take up more space, putting myself out there. So, I'm technically nervous on the inside, but I'm like, we're going to do it anyway. And the last thing I want to say is just thank you. When we talk about this new year, our conversations, you were the first person who asked me what was my word of the year. And now it sticks with me every single year. But my first year, the word was ease. And it every year, like things have just changed for me with that intentionality. So you've always, dropping gems, as we
Aw.
say. But I just really appreciate you for that. So I see a lot of ways in how my life has changed through our conversations and even just through your platform in general. So thank you for having me.
Oh, Ryan, I appreciate that so much. Thank you for just being an early supporter of Lemons to Lemonade and showing up when I call, and also just sharing space today. Like, I really value our conversations, and especially that conversation that we had. I know that was a personal conversation, but I just felt like it was so powerful that other people needed to be a fly on the wall
Yeah.
for how we converse and talk about our intentions. And so thank you for being open to doing that today. And you all make sure you're following Ryan on LinkedIn. And also make sure you follow him on IG. He has really great photography happening. He showcases it. He even was had a billboard in Times Square. One of his images was featured. So he's got really great things happening in 2022. So make sure to follow him and keep up.
And something else, as I said about taking is I'm a connector. So please hit me up on LinkedIn if you need anything. And, if you see a mutual connection, I more than likely know them. So please, I'm here to support any way I can.
Awesome. And you all, if you missed this conversation, you can catch it on Brittany Oliver on LinkedIn, as well as our Lemons to Lemonade YouTube page and our Lemons to Lemonade Facebook page. And I'll also share a little snippet on our IG page. So, yeah, you can find us everywhere. But thank you. And I look forward. Oh, also, we brought our newsletter to LinkedIn. And so this conversation will be featured in the newsletter coming out next week. So make sure you subscribe and look out for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Brittany.
Bye.
Take care.